Good afternoon and welcome to ICE webinars. Today we are joined by Dave Francoeur, President of Medical Equipment Service at Downtime Trace, Danny Mobley, Founder and CEO, and Jason Mobley, Co-Founder and Chief Product Officer. ICE webinars would like to thank our sponsor, Downtime Trace. Founded in 2023 by brothers Danny and Jason Mobley, Downtime Trace has a vision of revolutionizing commerce between customers and service providers by transforming it from a slow, expensive, and antiquated phone call system to a fast, competitive, and technologically advanced experience. For more information, please visit downtimetrace.com. Now, just a quick reminder to save the date for our 2026 ICE Expo, which will take place at the San Antonio Marriott River Center on the Riverwalk in San Antonio, Texas. That's February the 20th to the 22nd next year. Now, the Imaging Conference and Expo is the only conference dedicated to imaging directors, radiology administrators, and imaging engineers. ICE offers valuable CE credits from the ASRT and ACI and is a unique community of key decision makers and influential imaging professionals. For more details about that, please visit attendice.com. Also, just a quick reminder that ICE Magazine is excited to announce our first annual Diamond Awards. In December, we will be announcing the 8 imaging directors or managers who have been nominated and chosen by our ICE audience. Now, deadline for nominations is this Friday, which is May the 23rd. So to nominate an individual or yourself who you feel should be highlighted for their great leadership skills in the imaging healthcare field, please visit theiceCommunity.com/ICE Diamond. Okay, today's webinar is eligible for one ARC Category A CE certificate by the AHRA. You can obtain your CE certificate by completing the post-webinar survey, which will be emailed 1 hour after the completion of today's webinar. You must complete the survey to receive your 1 CE credit, and you'll be able to download the certificate directly from your computer once the survey is submitted. If you have any questions, you can reach us at webinar@mdpublishing.com. We'll be wrapping up today's presentation with a live Q&A, so please submit your questions anytime using the questions feature on your dashboard. You'll also find a handout from Downtime Trace in the handout section of your dashboard, so please feel free to download it. Let's kick off today's webinar by giving away one of our ICE gym bags to the attendee that can tell me the answer to the following trivia question. May is Lupus Awareness Month. What colour is associated with lupus awareness? Answer now using the questions feature on your dashboard, and I'll reveal the answer at the end of the webinar. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Dave, Danny, and Jason are our presenters today, and they will be discussing finally an app for medical equipment services. So Dave, you may begin whenever you're ready.
Thank you so much. All right, well, thank you everybody for being here. And I would like to, first of all, on behalf of the Downtime Trace team, wish every one of you, in whatever capacity you're in, a happy Healthcare Technology Management Week. This is pretty fortuitous that we are here doing this during this week, and so I feel even more blessed and honored to be part of the process. I'm also very excited to be part of this wonderful team and the product that we've got. On a personal note, I truly believe that this is the industry direction, right? Apps are the way to go. Everything is app related, and this is just going to be one of those things. So as you can see, Danny and Jason are brothers. They are also partnered by their wonderful mom, Debbie, who does some wonderful things for the organization. These guys are going to help share a lot of what we're all about and what we do and how they got to where they are. So we're very excited about that. But I just want to take a couple seconds out. Whether you're here in a HTM capacity or a clinical individual, as in the radiology department, this is something that I think is going to be meaningful and valuable to you, and we think it's going to bring valuable. So we look forward to you to participate and just kind of listen in. Whether you've got contracts, time materials, PM only type service, whether or not you're an OEM, an ISO, or an in-house program, you're a gig worker, it's all relevant. All of these individual, these things, these SLAs, these service delivery programs, they're all people that want to benefit from this app and that can benefit from this app. The thing that I think is most important is around the app is going to provide options. It's going to give you information. We're not here to decide whether or not you should have a service contract, not have a service contract. It's helping you get information to decide what service level arrangement and agreement is best for you and your organization, whatever capacity that is. You're also hopefully going to see that it's going to bring value in terms of speed to service, as well as maybe even possibly savings. So with that, what I want to do is introduce Danny and Jason. Danny's going to help us understand the why. Why do we have this app? What did we do to bring this to you and the value that it brings? Jason's going to bring you the what. What specifically did he build and design to help achieve the goals that they're going to describe to you? So without further ado, please, Mr. Danny and Mr. Jason, bring us and tell us everything about this great product that you've got for us today.
Thanks, Dave. So you don't get to build a company without surrounding yourself with good people. And as you can see by Dave's illustrious career, he's done it all in our world. And to attract talent like that is something that we're absolutely blessed and humbled by. So thanks, Dave, for the intro, and thanks for believing in this product. It means a lot. If you don't mind going to the next slide, I'll just go ahead and dive in. So just to keep it, simple from our perspective, the way that people buy in their personal lives has always been relevant. And the way that my brother and I, Jason, grew up in this industry, we just happened to get into healthcare through the medical equipment service side. And so we're coming at this problem having, years and years of a career dedicated to just making sure that your medical equipment gets serviced in the right way. And over the past 6 to 10 years, Jason has been in my ear saying, hey, why do we buy so differently in our industry? Why does healthcare buy so differently than we do in our personal lives? And so we spend a lot of time tossing this problem up between us and just contemplating, how did we get here in this industry? Why do we do business the way we do and have done for 40 or 50 years? And why don't we kind of ride the coattails of what's going on in society? So at the core, in order for us to get to this point, a lot of things had to happen. Number one, technology had to advance enough, meaning that before we had the smartphones, the way we have smartphones today, we had Blackberries. But without the invention of the iPhone and the App Store, there's no way we could do this. So when we think about what was necessary for us to get to the point to where we could even come up with this sort of an idea, those things had to happen. So we're very fortunate that the user interface that buyers use the most is something that's accepted by you in society, and something we believe that you are so accustomed to using that it should feel foreign not to buy the way you're used to buying in your personal lives. So that was sort of our bet in this whole process, was folks are going to want to do what they do at home, what they like to do. And so we also thought about the other side of it, which is, hey, the transportation business, 15, 18 years ago was transformed by a technology similar to what we're bringing to the table here with Downtime Trace. If you think about what it was like to hail a taxi, or even more so call for a taxi back 15 years ago, it was fraught with all sorts of inconveniences and unknowns. I remember from Oklahoma is where I'm from, and I didn't really use taxis until I got older in life and could actually afford to go out into the big cities, or business took me there. But when I did, and I had to call for a taxi to get from one place to the next, I remember being a little bit unsettled because I didn't know the area. I didn't know what taxi services would be most appropriate to call. And so I had Google and I had a phone book to choose from. So imagine as a patron of taxis, you're having to call somebody and say, hey, will you come pick me up? But then you had to wait until somebody showed up. You didn't really actually know when they were going to arrive. You didn't know who was going to be there to pick you up. You actually probably didn't really know what you were going to pay for that ride. And you certainly didn't know how long it was going to take to get you from point A to point B as far as estimates go. And then paying was really a challenge. Like, I remember being concerned that I'd never had cash when I traveled. And so I had to take extensive measures to make sure I had cash, so I didn't get stuck in a taxi that didn't accept credit cards. So all these things come up when you think about that whole experience. And then how did Uber revolutionize that, right? I also think about how did the Domino's tracker, the pizza tracker. I mean, pizza is going to come up in our story a couple of times, so bear with us. But that pizza tracker, when that thing came out, when we ordered pizza, we could see where the pizza was in the process. We felt like that was a really important milestone for technology and for the advancement of humankind. And also this goes to our story in this way. My brother, Jason, was working as an HTM director, what you might call a biomed director at a local hospital in Oklahoma. And he was also delivering pizzas at night. And he did that to make ends meet. And as he's delivering pizzas, you know, he had his hospital, people in the OR department were calling out for service. They would call out to the manufacturer in the middle of the night to get a sterilization fixed, a piece of sterilization equipment. And it just so happens that he had the skill set to work on that sterilization piece. And the OEM that he called, they charged a lot of money to come out in the middle of the night, but they needed their equipment back up. Jason was available, and if they would have only known that he was available and willing to come in and perform the service, it could have changed things for the hospital. It could have saved money, but more so, it could have had somebody who was familiar with their organization get there as quickly as possible. So it's with that he kind of came up with this idea of, hey, I'm getting dispatched to deliver pizzas, and I'm not getting dispatched to go in and do what I'm really good at, which is medical equipment service. And so the idea kind of spawned from him out in the world experiencing, you know, a way to make ends meet, to get more income. And so it's with that we created this. That's at the foundation of why we created it. So again, pizza comes into play, but just, you know, what we hope that you'll sort of envision as you go through this presentation. Jason's going to tell you a little bit about the what behind this why, but then Dave's going to jump in and kind of show you everything so you can actually see what we're talking about in the screens on the app. And so the why, I mean, in our estimation, is just to match up what you do at work with what you do in your personal lives. So buyers are accustomed to seeing all their pricing options. They've grown accustomed, we've grown accustomed to seeing how quickly somebody can get their goods and services to us. Think about Amazon. I won't purchase something off of Amazon unless I can see when that product will arrive at my doorstep. And by the way, I use the tracking mechanism a lot for UPS or FedEx or USPS to see where that delivery is in the process. Also, the star ratings and reviews. If I want somebody to come watch my dog while I'm on vacation or out of town, I use Rover. And Rover is one where it's really important to see the past ratings and reviews of who's going to come into your house. Also, the payment. I watched a podcast on Airbnb and the founders of Airbnb, and their contention is that why their app is so popular, or at least one reason, is because at the end of the day, the people who are renting a room don't really know or trust the owners who are renting their property, right? That are putting their property up for rent. And the owners of the homes don't have any way to really trust that they're going to receive the money from the patrons or the renters of the home. And so the app served as this sort of middleman that they could both trust to, number one, receive payment and then pay out. And so as you get to know our app a little bit through what Dave presents, just hope you keep those things in mind about the way you buy and all the things we might take for granted after all of these years of buying through an app. So Dave, if you don't mind going to the next slide. Thank you, sir. And so one of the things that we had to do for this app was raise money. We don't raise Silicon Valley type money, but we had to raise a significant amount of money to make this thing work. And just to be frank, I had never raised money before in my life or my career, so it was all new to me. I had to build a pitch deck. And in order to help our potential investors understand why this was so financially valuable to hospitals or imaging centers, we had to come up with some data points. And somebody gave this to me along the way, this idea that that hospitals lose $8,000 per minute when their medical imaging equipment is down. And at first, I didn't believe that number. That's a really big number. So I did a survey, is what you can kind of see here. And I asked people out on LinkedIn and that ecosphere, and they gave me good feedback. I was able to see who gave answers. A lot of smart people responded to this survey. And so it is the belief that it's about $6,000 to $8,000 per minute lost by hospitals whenever there's downtime experienced. But our focus really isn't so much on the per minute loss that hospitals have. It's reducing the amount of minutes that you're down. So our why is to reduce that to as few minutes as possible. and speed to uptime. Speed to uptime is a major thing. So access to options and speed to uptime, if you keep those things in mind, this is a financial reason why. All right.
So, Danny, great, thank you. At this point, I think, if you don't mind, Lynn, can you do the 2 polls? We want to do 2 polls if you don't mind.
Okay, no problem. Right, attendees, I'm launching the first poll, which you should see on your screen. So how are radiology technologists personally impacted by downtime? You have 4 choices. You have anxiety spike, frustrated, annoyed, no concern, get to take a break, or worried about how to resolve the problem. Just give you a minute to vote. Okie dokie. Right. Right, gentlemen, you have your answers where you have 18% that have an anxiety spike, 71% are frustrated or annoyed, 12% are worried about how to resolve the problem, and 0% for no concern to get to take a break. Do you want to comment on that before I launch the next one?
No, it lines up really nicely. I think that's that's what we've experienced in our careers. Certainly frustration and annoyance when we hear from our customers throughout the years.
Okay, I will launch the next one, attendees. Okay, again, what do you believe to be the most important during a repair or service event? We've got speed response time, quick access to all qualified service options, communication, or expertise of service providers, sorry. Okay, I'll give you a second to vote. Okay. Right, so we have 71% at speed response time, 24% at expertise of service providers, 6% at communication, and 0% at quick access to all qualified service options. So there you go.
Well, that lines up pretty nicely, Dave, with the next slide.
Yeah.
We kind of guessed, and so yeah, response time matters. And whether you have a contract in place with a manufacturer or you don't, we've seen throughout the years how some organizations might use whether you have a contract or not as a way to put you on a priority list, if you will. I'm sure people have heard that. So having all of your options available to you for every time you need service is one of the cool things about the app, right? We won't get into a lot of the what, but in our why, we spent so many times with panels. Our individual experience along the way was obviously telling us that there was a potential hole in the response time from our industry, but we heard a lot of really big points, but response time kept coming up, and speed kept an urgency. Those things really came out of the listening tour that we did over the past however many years to get to this point. So just thinking about who in your organization has the ability to track uptime commitments, response time commitments, track anything, frankly, for the people who provide service on your equipment. Think through that. You might find it's surprising that it's hard to do. It shouldn't be, but it's hard to do. So Dave, you don't mind going to the next slide? This is a big one for us. Our industry, when I say our industry, the HTM industry, the medical equipment service providers, we're here to do fast access. That's one of the main themes, is fast access, but also making sure that we provide every available option for service. And Dave, on this topic, on this slide, you brought up something to me yesterday as we were doing rehearsal. What did you want people to know when it comes to availability whenever they have a service need?
You're asking me?
Yeah, I was asking you. You brought it up, so I wanted to throw it your way. And you said something about how your options for service at the time that you have a service need, and how important it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so that's the beauty of the app, right? Is that we're going to provide you with options, and in some instances, at least in my experience in this career, which is longer than I care to admit, I mean, sometimes it's around I got to have it up yesterday. Sometimes it's around I can't afford to pay what it's going to cost me to get this done. There's the aspect of the political environment, right? Whether it's the radiology director, whether it's a radiologist, whether it's the patients, whether it's the community outreach, there's all kinds of factors that are going to play into every service event that can happen. And all of those are going to play part and parcel into the clinical staff and the decision that they make. And that's the beautiful thing about this app. With any luck, you're going to get several different options with several different resolutions. So you can pick the one that's best for you. And that's what's great about this app. And one of the many things that's going to be wonderful. So yeah, Danny, thanks for giving me that opportunity.
Yeah, man, and your perspective is so unique where you come from, and I really appreciate that. And one of the things Jason and I talked about yesterday around this topic was that, in our experience as service providers in the past on that side of the coin, we would tell the clinicians, the people who requested service, what we called our customers on the hospital and imaging center side, we would often tell them the reasons why somebody couldn't get there as quickly as the customer might like. And we would say, perfectly reasonable excuses, but what we were really doing was saying that we, as a service provider, one single option could only do this for you. But with this, this why behind this is there are so many other options besides just that one person that you're talking to. And it's really a matter of hunger. And we felt like if we created competition at the service event level, it would keep people honest to when they could arrive and how much they would charge you. And then by seeing, as you're going to see some of the features here in the future in this presentation, it gives you control. It gives you opportunities to make better choices for your organization, but at least you'll have all the options. We felt like that was a really important reason why. So, Dave, if you don't mind kind of going forward, we'll keep down this path. And so as you look into the why on the next slide,
Danny, if I could, just before we even go to that, you remind me of one other thing. So there's going to be instances where people have full service contracts.
Yeah.
And there are going to be instances when those full service contracts can't be executed on because of one reason or another. And I can speak from experience on this. So there's going to be times when, even if you have a contract, you can't get the service that you need for one reason or another. This will again give you options for choices for which then you can make the best decision for you and your organization. So thank you. I just want to bring that up.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt to have options, right? And so the other thing that we knew was a big challenge. I mean, and a lot of these, the whys were because we've seen it done so poorly over the years, and we just couldn't understand why it hadn't changed. So the why behind the why is because we couldn't understand why. Let's just keep doing the same thing, and hopefully people will sort of succumb and get used to it being bad. So best practices is a big deal. When you think about all the different vendors out there and all the different hospitals, the hospitals right now have kind of lost control to a certain extent. I mean that in jest that, you're having to capitulate to all these different service providers and how they do business. So even ordering service or dispatching service, the way that they communicate throughout any sort of service event, it's kind of up to them and their way. But every one of these logos you see on this screen and many, many more, you're having to figure out how they do business. And that's hard to do, for one person, for you as a buyer to try to figure out how all these people do business. Our stance is that, they maybe shouldn't have to figure out how the thousands of hospitals do business, and you shouldn't have to figure out how the hundreds of service providers do business. If there's one standard that everybody could say, yeah, that makes sense. We want to be communicated like this. We want these status updates at these times. Like, we've just felt like, why should you both have to learn so much about each other? It's a lot to take in. There is a best way to do it. There is a best practice. We had the audacity to think that we could at least try for a best practice when it comes to communication throughout a service event. And so our point here is that everybody thinks they've got best practices. Let's just choose one and all sort of, rally around that one. So it's with that, Dave, I'm going to sort of pass it to Jason here. And Jason, if you could maybe tell the group here.
We're going to poll here, Danny.
Okay, you want to do that now? The polls? Okay.
Okay,
Let's just
right.
one poll. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Okay, so who do you contact when your equipment requires service? Service technicians, providers are in my contact list phone. The service company's business cards is taped to equipment. I just call my in-house biomed service department. Google, not sure who to call. I'll just give you a moment to choose your option. Okay, we go. Righty-ho. You have 50% say, I just call my in-house biomed service department. 32% say service technicians, providers are on my contact list. 18% is the service company's business card is taped to the equipment, and you haven't got anybody that actually bothers to go to Google, which is probably a good thing.
Yeah. Great. Thank you for that. That's kind of, again, just tracking with our experience. And so I think I'm going to take this opportunity now to sort of pass it to Jason and kind of give you the why behind, or sorry, the what, how he did it. And I'll build him up a little bit. I mean, he's my little brother, but I've never seen him perform the way he has over the past couple of years. He's really turned into a whiz when it comes to putting in a flow chart his vision for every screen on the app or on the website. And it's really challenging to find the right user interface. He has an artistic mind, but he's a very organized brain when it comes to this stuff. And without him, there's no way the idea would have existed. Without him, we wouldn't be where we are. And so he really was considering the why and his past experience to create this, but then to have developers developing your vision, and the money we spent and all the pressure that comes with it, he has shined, and I'm so proud to be able to say that. It's the work of his life, and so I want to kind of let him, take a minute and say what he made, and really touch on the access to options, the speed, the communication throughout a service event, the control that it gives the hospital, and then the visibility after the service event. Like, if you think about your Uber experience or your DoorDash experience, the past rides on Uber, to be able to see when you took a ride in the past as a rider, as a customer, and be able to click into that and easily get visual access to your past rides, that's important in our world for history, for convenience sake, but also for reporting and for the regulatory aspect of this. It's really nice to have a repository of information where if you click on your CT or your MR or your cath lab, you can see your past service events, and then click into that if you want to. It shows you everything that you need to know, including video. I mean, it's a really cool thing, but man, the why is it's really convenient for users to be able to easily get to their past service events and see what they want to see really quickly. So anyway, Jason, I wanted to set you up the right way. I hope I did. If you don't mind kind of talking about what you built, and then Dave will go into his demo.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Danny. Thanks for the kind words. It's I really appreciate it. So we when we thought about these challenges that we're trying to solve for the clinician and for the person ordering service and getting to uptime quickly and providing those options, it's a little bit more than just providing options, right? It's you can do that with Google, you can do that with the phone book, you can find options. What our app does is it actually only matches pre-qualified options. And we do that by qualifying the vendors inside of our system down to the make and model of the device. And that allows us to activate an algorithm when service is requested based on make and model of the device that's broken. Now we're only querying the qualified service providers also by geography, just like similar to Uber's technology, how all the drivers in the area who are available, who can provide a ride, only presents back to the buyer. Same concept here. That first matching allows us to send an invitation to the service providers that are qualified, that are nearby, that are interested, and then what comes back to the buyer is bids. Everyone, now you're bringing all of the available options to you. You no longer have to go down a progression of a call list. You no longer have to be worried about vetting these technicians, the specific technician placing the bid or the specific company placing the bid for your business. You're bringing them all to you. So that's first. And then once you do award a bid to the technician or the provider that fits your needs the best based on their promised arrival time and their cost, then we needed a way to update you through the app on the status of the repairs. So we have a tracker really similar to Domino's for a quick visual reference, We've also implemented in-app alerts and email notification alerts at different points. For instance, when the technician has departed to come to your facility, when they've arrived to your facility, when they're on site, and then when they finish the repair, we've actually built in a workflow that allows you to remain compliant with your own institution's protocols or compliance around quotes and invoices. So approvals to move on to the next stage. So you're presented with the estimate inside the app for that repair from that technician right when they're done evaluating the problem. And then your protocols are set up with your hospital of who can approve that quote, and only the right people are approving the quotes with the right PO numbers because of that setup on the customer side. And then, like Danny said, the archiving and the historical reference of these, what we call trace tickets, these work orders are indefinitely stored on both sides for the service providers and the customers for reference points in the future. And from all of this data, from creating all of these touch points from the service provider side and the customer side, you can imagine the analytics, the possibility to squeeze data out of this system. Now you have analytics that is standard across all service providers and all equipment. Whereas before you were relying, like Danny said, on each company to provide those analytics based on only the things that they worked on for you. So it's really segmented. This app allows you access to all providers for all modalities of your equipment, which means the data at the end, those analytics are going to be much more organized, much more valuable for customers to make purchasing decisions or compliance requirements, fulfill compliance requirements with data reporting. So those are just a few of the core features of the app and how it works and what we built.
Yeah, great job, Jason. I think the screens, the feedback we've gotten early from our our betas and our pilots and the service providers that we've had on the app is they really appreciate the look and feel. It is, it's not real janky. It's kind of cool, the features that are on here. We've got great visuals and also we're always in the business of reducing the amount of touches that you'll have to have or the steps. And that's always been at the forefront when we've done these panels and these queries of people is how can we make this more efficient for you? How can we make your life easier? And Jason and I were talking yesterday, and one of the big things that he said that I want to make sure I mention here is that this isn't additional work for you. This is a reduction of work. And so we're often, brought into new technology like ChatGPT or AI, and my challenge is I always feel like it's more to do. And in this case, the app actually has it actually reduces your workload versus adding more to your plate. So if you think about it from those terms, this isn't, a one-for-one or an add. It's actually a reduction in what you have to do whenever your equipment needs, service or you need access to data after the fact. So anyway, I want to make sure I made that point. Dave, I'm so excited for you to jump into the next section here for kind of showing folks what I just said about the beauty of the app, the way it was built, how it works and all that stuff. So you can just kind of keep rolling through those points. And then, we'll come back to this slide and do some more poll questions.
Awesome. Just gonna pull it up. There we go. Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you guys. And as always, phenomenal. And it's always a pleasure to present with you guys. So as I said, this is a real honor and treat for me to be able to show you what this app is going to do and how it works. So as you can see, whether you put it on a Google phone, an Apple phone, or even on a desktop, your app, you're going to have an icon or an app just like you would anything else. And so this is what it would look like. You're a clinical person and you need to get some service, whether it's a PM or repair. It's not material. You could even maybe want to just get a part. But in any event, you would go and get started. And this is what the app, this was how it's going to come up. You would say request service. You're going to push on this button. And with that, as a customer, you're going to already we will have preloaded all of your inventory into the database. So you would click on this and you would get a drop down menu and you would click on the specific device that you're looking for. You're going to talk about the urgency. Urgency could be, hey, it's a PM. I need it in the next 60, 90 days. Could be, you know what, if you were here yesterday, that would have been great because I've got 10 patients backed up in the hallway waiting to get in here. And whatever that is, you're going to be able to drop that in, put down what it looks like. And then lastly, the coolest thing is you're going to do the problem solving. So let me do it. I'm going to hit this button here. And what happens is you're going to see this populate those first two categories that I talked about. And you'll see it run through it and how that works. And then you get to put in some free text around what it is specifically that you'd like to put. But then this is the coolest thing. Jason did this really great thing, because we all have this opportunity sometimes where it's hard to explain what it is that we're wanting to deal with directly. You get to go here and actually create a video. You can actually show them specifically what you're seeing, error logs, the device is broken, whatever the case is, it's cracked, you're going to do it. Once you've done that, you've put in all your criteria, you go ahead and you hit the actual blast button, and off it goes. And you're going to see it go through this process. At this point, all of those service providers that Jason alluded to that are qualified, that we've vetted out, they're going to be notified. Their phones are going to click. They're going to beep. They're going to say, hey, you got an opportunity to bid on a potential service opportunity. So with that, they would go in here and they would click on the ticket, and it lets them know that. And there's emails to tell them to follow through in the whole bit. And this is a process, the actual stuff that's going on behind the scenes. But at this point, as you can see, they literally get to see who the facility is, exactly what asset it is. They get to see the hospital details. And then they get to, as we showed already, they're actually going to see the video. And that's what this looks like, right? So on their end, they actually get to see all that information that you put in. With that, they then get to decide, you know what, I'm not really interested for whatever reason, or of course, they're going to say, I want to place a bid. So they do that. Well, this is cool. So now they get to say, when can I be there? They get to say about how much time is it going to take in labor for travel and for being on site. They get to put up the 3 different dollar values associated with their rates, whether that's travel, regular time, overtime, whatever the case may be. And then they get to put in specifically some comments around, hey, why should you pick me? What is it about me that's going to make me better than anybody else that you're going to look at as to why they should do that? For example here, this particular one said, for the first wave, for me to come in and do an evaluation, I'm going to go ahead and it's $313. So as a hospital or as a healthcare institution that has this, that sent out this bid, you're now notified via email and through the app that you have opportunities to look at. So you're going to click on them and you're notified by that, right? So when you click on that opportunity and you see what's going on, you're again reminded through email. And this is the coolest thing about this. In this email process, everyone gets to decide who should see this. I know in some of my cases in the previous lives, a CEO actually wanted to know when they're in a small rural town, and they actually wanted to know when the MRI, the CT went down. So the CEO could be included on this, the vice president of operations, the clinical nurse leader, the radiology director, the physicist, whoever you want can be included in this email chain. That's the coolest thing about it. And they're notified what's going on. Once they click on that, then they get to go in and see what's going on. So in this particular case, we have 2 examples. And as I indicated earlier, sometimes it's about price, sometimes it's about response. As you can see, this particular one's half the price, but yet they won't get there until 8. And in this case, they could be there at 4:30 in the morning, and the hope is that it's up and running before this one could even show up. These are examples, but I'm going to go ahead and show and demonstrate by clicking on this one exactly what we're talking about. As a service provider or as a clinical staff looking to choose a service provider, this is wonderful. This is a little Yelp review, if you will, around who they are, what the organization is, what the skill sets are, why you should want to go and have service with these folks. If they've done service for us in the past, and they would have a rating. So you as a clinician will be rating your people after every service event. You know, overall, how was it? Timeliness, communication, all of those services would be put in here. But you would be able to see that as you're trying to choose who it is that you want to perform the service in the next event. Okay, so in this case, we're going to go ahead and accept this offer. Immediately, the healthcare organization must populate a PO. Takes all the questioning, all the painstaking out of it. PO is put in right then and there. Documented, tracked in the system, as Jason alluded to earlier. The email, the app then notifies the service provider, you've won the bid. That's phenomenal. They are automatically notified. We go ahead and they accept that. Most important thing, one of the greatest things about this, as we all know from service, sometimes even in an in-house, we're not always notified or in the process of knowing when that person's on their way to come see us. This is huge. I'm on my way. That immediately notifies anybody in the email chain who it is, when it is, and on their way. the next step in that process would be the exact same thing. By the way, I'm now on site. Again, huge communication, quick buttons. There's not major time consuming. It's not very intrusive, but it's letting everyone know what's going on in the process, which we feel is one of the most advantageous processes to this app. With that, the whole situation's there. Everybody's been notified. That's, from my perspective, that's typically where at this point I stop in this process, because it gives you enough information to see how it works. It sees how the process works. It's basically the same from here and out. The quote process it's being built throughout the whole process as they're tracking and putting the information into the app. And at the end of it, there is an invoice that's generated. The service entity must say, yes, that's the invoice that I'm generating. The facility must say, yes, it's been serviced and that invoice seems to be appropriate. Downtime Trace and its resources will evaluate the invoice and make that determination. When the three entities have approved it, Downtime Trace will invoice the healthcare organization and pay the service provider. Danny, at this point, I would just say, from your perspective, what do you think? You want to go back to?
Yeah, no, I love it. Like the thing that comes to mind most is that when I had an Angie List experience, I blasted my need out. It wasn't called blast, but I got on Angie's List and I sent out my request, and then I was bombarded with calls on Angie's List, from power washers to carpenters to plumbers, everything in between. They had salespeople calling me. My phone was blowing up. It wasn't just blowing up that day or that moment. It was blowing up my phone for weeks after. The cool part about this is it's all contained within the app. So you're not going to have people calling your personal cell phone. It's all going to be in-app notifications and emails as sort of a backup, just in case something goes wrong with the app. But truthfully, it's the in-app notifications that you're used to whenever there's a status change. For example, when the folks at Domino's get to a certain different point, they would let you know that they're on their way. Same sort of thing here. You're going to get in-app notification, and those notifications are really up to you to choose who you want to receive those. And I mean, patient scheduling, it was at the top of mind. Purchasing was at top of mind. There's all these different components. And then at the end, it shouldn't be revolutionary. It really shouldn't be, but it is. Out of all these years, out of all the things we've done, we never had that step to have our customers approve the final work on any given service event. We never had that before. So that's one of the things that you look at this slide. I know, Dave, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but that's all these things we put on this particular view here are those things that will transpire that I think make us different. And I never would have thought that the final approval of somebody's work would have been something that was revolutionary, but apparently it is. And it makes so much sense to have somebody say, yes, I approve this invoice. I approve that you did the work that you said you did. And then you go on from there and do what we all do, which is rate and give a review, so future customers can have the ability to understand the experience of past customers. This isn't just a Google review or Yelp review. This is actually you as customers giving the service providers, no matter who they are, a piece of your mind. Whether it's good or bad, you get to say how they did, and that will matter in the future for that service provider whenever they're bidding. If they don't have good star ratings, like me, frankly, I'm kind of a snob when it comes to star ratings. I want them to be well into the high 4s, right? So it's kind of one of those things where, again, just bringing over the buying habits that society has accepted and doing what made sense and riding the coattails of what works. That's really kind of back to where we started, Dave. I think is just reminding people that that's what this is about, is to do what makes sense in your personal lives. Just bring it over to work.
Agreed. Well, at this point, I think, Linda, you have 2 more polls that I think we were going to do.
Yep, sure. Okay, righto. The first one is, how do you ensure service providers are contractually performing against response time and uptime guarantees terms? We ask the contracted service provider for a report. We have no way to track performance. We don't have guarantees or terms in our contracts. It's a mess. Okay, I'll give you a second just to finish that. Okay, right, gentlemen, you have 71% say we ask for the contracted service provider for a report, followed 14%, we have no way to track performance. And then both at 7%, we don't have guarantees or terms in our contracts, and it's a mess. Do you want to comment on that before I go on to the next one?
I might. So whenever I was in the service provider world as an executive, we would create these contracts, and we knew every service provider knows that it's really hard for our customers to track these things and hold us accountable. So it was easy to write in consequences for uptime guarantees or response time guarantees, because we knew that it was going to be really hard for anybody to hold us accountable. But we also, like many of you said, you would come to us for the data. And it's like, to me, I think the term is fox in the hen house a little bit. And so, you know, we as we built that was one of the whys, is we said, if this is going to work, hospitals are going to have some courage, maybe a lot of courage, to fight the status quo, but to wrestle back control, to take back control of things that you've negotiated in your contracts, for example, just to ensure that everybody's doing what they said they would do, and you know, you can, you know, get what you get what you negotiated in your agreements, or be able to give real data to somebody to help them improve if you're finding that there's challenges. So really appreciate the honesty and the candor in that response. We had a feeling that was what you would say, but it's nice to kind of see that that's verified and affirmed through that poll. So thank you, Linda.
Okay, I'll launch the next one. Okay, so when do you rate a service provider's quality? After every service event, I'm never asked to give a rating or review, only when things have gone bad, and finally, when we are evaluating our next service contract. Okay, rightio, let's share that. Right, you have, I am never asked to give a rating or review, that's 42%. Next is after every service event, which is 25%. Then again, joint 17%, you got only when things have gone bad and when we're evaluating our next service contract.
Yeah, that's probably pretty typical, I would think.
Yep.
That's great. I appreciate everybody's feedback and input into that. So I guess from my perspective, I mean, Jason, anything else you'd like to, you know, that you've come up with or thought about since we've kind of got into this?
No, I don't think so, Dave. I think what I'd just like to add that, you know, a lot of are to emphasize what Danny said earlier, that when you look at the Downtime Trace app, you're not looking at adding workload or adding something new to your process. You're replacing possibly, let's say you have 10 different vendors that you have to deal with because the modalities that exist in your department, you're actually replacing 10 different processes with one. So that's where that reduction, like Danny said, or reduction in workload, that's where that happens. It's not having to learn everyone else's software system. Not that they're bad. I know these are, some of these companies have great tools for you to manage, but only those modalities and only those things that they're servicing for for the customer's institution. So this is something that can replace a lot with a little, and there's where that reduction comes in.
Yeah, great. And Dave, I'll finish. From my vantage point, this has been a major humbling experience. I remember when I was in Philadelphia, my first time traveling, and I was waiting on the curb for a cab, and you know, I didn't know what was coming. I didn't know what was supposed to happen, and that uncertainty was resolved through, you know, technology like Uber and Lyft. And I think about, you know, my experience in this industry for all these years, when, you know, Jason and I were part of the service solution. It can only go so far, and technology has to play a part in making it better, and it can. It's this administrative management of this process is really kind of easily rectified through technology and through things like this. If it's not this, it will be something. And we just happen to, you know, have the opportunity, thankfully, to raise the amount of money to, you know, buy into our idea, Jason's idea, to a point to where it was quitting our jobs and everything we knew to focus our efforts on bringing this to bear for an industry and a market that we always felt like this was going to happen. It was always looking over our shoulder in the past saying, why and when is this going to get better? And so eventually we had to step in and put our finger in the hole of the dam where we found the hole. It's a niche, but it is something that we believe can really help you in your work and reduce your frustration and make things more efficient. So from my perspective, I am so humbled to be here, able to talk to this group. I have spent a lot of time with Humans of Healthcare interviewing radiology technologists, radiology leaders. A big shout out to UTSW in North Texas. Those folks have been great to me over the years. And if you ever get a chance, go to Humans of Healthcare, watch the interview we did at the AHRA last year in Orlando. Great people talking about great topics. It's not a shameless plug for Humans of Healthcare. I don't do that for money. That's just for the community. So I hope you'll get a chance to go watch those wonderful folks at UTSW and AHRA members. And to everybody out there, radiology world, again, we did this for you. It's our life's work, and we gave it everything we got. So we hope that you'll talk about it, ask questions, and help us get the word out if this makes sense to you.
Thanks, Danny and Jason. So Linda, I know we don't have a lot of time, but do we have some questions that we were gonna want to deal with?
Yes, just a few. The first one that came in is, can the app be used on equipment under service contract with the OEM?
Yeah, Danny, who do you want to take that?
Well, you can take it, Dave.
Sure, no, great. So as a matter of fact, one of the craziest and greatest things is our very first customer was just that exactly. They have full service contracts with all the major manufacturers. And in fact, they're using it to do nothing more than we indicated earlier, where it gives them more information to make better decisions around what they want to do from service. And they're not relying on, as Danny indicated, either the fox watching the hen house and giving the feedback. So, I'm not knocking the OEMs or anybody else for that matter with a service contract. But in fact, yes, the answer is yes. And we encourage that even if you have service contracts. One of the beautiful things is Jason's got it set up so that we can make it so that it only goes to certain providers at certain times if that's what you want, because they're your vendor of choice. But as I indicated earlier, there's always instances where you may have to do something outside of that. This would give you and afford you that opportunity. So short answer is yes, we'd love the opportunity to have that discussion.
Perfect. A few more have just popped up. Do you offer service for preventative maintenance as well?
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the beautiful things I think is really even more valuable about the app is such a way that you could schedule in advance up to a year all of the things, actually more than that, but for sure a year in advance, where you could have everything already pre-populated, loaded, and just send that out and get somebody to give you bids to do them at your convenience when you want them and whoever you want, with or without one vendor or multiple vendors. So absolutely, and it's highly recommended you consider the app for PM specifically.
Yeah, I'll piggyback. It's even we found a testing ground if you are intrigued by a certain service provider that you haven't used before. Have them come in and do a PM, get to know them a little bit, expand your options and your familiarity with those gig technicians. I mean, this could be something that's wonderful for opening up. We didn't talk enough about this, more service options. That's ultimately one of the goals, is to create new service options for you. And sometimes it takes testing them out through like a PM, something that's not an emergency, to really get a feel for who somebody is and test the market.
It's a great point, Danny. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, another question here is, how can we make sure that the service options are set up to do business with our facility?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll start it and then I'll hand it off to one of these guys because they probably have some more insight. But we set up, and when we bring you on as either a customer or as a service provider, we have a very extensive but not too intrusive process by where we have to ask certain questions, seek information, and making sure that we have all that. So one of our processes as a customer in particular is that we get with your finance department, your procurement department, your clinical engineering department, your radiology department, and we're making sure that we dot our I's and cross our T's in the way that you need it to be done, and making sure that we go from there. But with that, either Danny or Jason, other thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, there's an extensive checklist that we follow, and we have a competency review resource to make sure that people who give us feedback that they have expertise at either a novice, professional, or expert level. That's really important for us to gather up front. Credentialing is really important. We even get the motor vehicle records to ensure that because we're insuring, to use that word, insurance, that was a big factor for us And our insurance company holds us accountable to making certain that anybody who comes on as a service provider has followed these steps that we've put out there, because they're going to end up insuring the general liability, cybersecurity, all those things. Our insurance company's insuring those that walk in your door. So there's a lot to that piece. It was something that when we jumped in, we used who's, because we didn't have all the answers. We did that a number of times, the who not how philosophy. And we really spent a lot of time. As a matter of fact, I'm glad we did, because Dave, like the ISOs, that tends to be the top question, is how are you vetting independent service organizations that are joining as service providers? They want to know that the answer to that question. Customers are very keen on that. I think that's the question we've been asked most, as a matter of fact. And we've actually spent the most time on developing the proper checklist for that. It's a big deal.
Yep.
Okay. Another question here. What happens if the actual cost of the repair exceeds the bid?
Jason.
Yeah, Jason, you want to do that?
Yeah, sure. So we built in controls at 3 different places. The original bid itself is a bid to do an evaluation visit. So we've separated this event into phases: evaluation visit and a service visit. After the diagnosis of the issue of the repair is made, a second service quote is presented for approval. And then after the service visit, a final invoice is submitted for approval. If those don't match up, our technology actually notifies the customer at any point that it goes above for an additional approval from that facility. So combined with, so the technology itself recognizes if a certain amount has gone over the what was previously approved. So no work ever takes place. By separating this into different phases and requiring approvals at these points. The bid itself is for an evaluation only. So, but when the work is known what needs to be done, then an additional approval is sought. And again, if it takes a little bit longer for the service visit than what they estimated, an additional approval at the final invoice is sought before it's submitted to the purchasing department.
Perfect. Well, unfortunately, we've come to nearly the end of our hour. I have got a couple of other questions, but I will send them to you afterwards for you to answer. Okay. So thank you, gentlemen, for your time today and for such a great and interesting presentation. And also thank you to our sponsor, Downtime Trace. For more information, please visit downtime.trace.com. Now, as promised, the answer to today's trivia question is purple. So congratulations to our winner, Sarah Cowell. I hope I pronounced that properly. A quick reminder, you can obtain your CE certificate by completing the post-webinar survey, which will be emailed 1 hour after the completion of today's webinar. You must complete the survey to receive your 1 Art Category A CE credit by the AHRA, and you'll be able to download the certificate directly from your computer once the survey is submitted. If you have any questions, you can reach us at webinar@mdpublishing.com. Please visit icewebinars.live for more details of all our upcoming ICE webinars and, of course, complimentary registration. Now, if you've missed any of our past ICE webinars, again, please visit icewebinars.live to view our whole webinar archive. So thank you all for your time today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, MD Publishing. Thanks, Linda. Happy HCM week, everybody.
Yeah.